Good afternoon to our panelists. Good afternoon to everybody that is involved here today, and welcome to this our series of SA Facilities Management Association webinars. So far, we've covered a number of interesting topics. We've had some good feedback. We've had some good responses, and let's hope that this is no exception at all. Earlier this year, SAFMA undertook a facilities management industry research study or survey, which followed on one that was done a couple of years ago, well, more than a couple of years ago, in fact, 2017 it was. And the idea was to update that and to give the industry and all our stakeholders an update of where we are in the industry. One of the issues that popped out of the survey was what we can almost call now a hardy annual around skills development and training and skills in general. And it's my pleasure this afternoon to introduce to you Jan Wechlin, who was the lead of that research study. Jan has been in the research industry for probably longer than he'd care to admit to being. He's one of the icons I call of the research sector. He has served as chairperson of the South African Marketing Research Association and has been a SAMRA accredited researcher since 2011. He's also had a lot of international exposure and presented papers across the world. So Jan's going to be our first panelist up today. Our second panelist is Andrew Brown from the Western Cape, from Cape Town, who is the CEO of Ethical Services, a Cape Town-based organization operating in the cleaning and security environments within our industry. Andrew comes from the hospitality background, having managed and worked in luxury hotels, resorts, as well as retail centers and an international transport hub or two. In talking to him over the last few weeks, it's evident that he has a passion for employee development and prides himself in having seen a number of his employees actually grow and develop in their careers. Our next panelist is Dumisani Malinga, who comes from a facilities management and property management background in retail and commercial operations, as well as other property aspects. He's the Chief Executive Officer of Full Facilities Management, an FM service provider based in Johannesburg. Over and above that, he also finds time to be the chair of the Gauteng chapter of SAFMA. Welcome to our panelists, and thank you for giving up of your time to share knowledge and insights into the industry with our participants here today. So first up, as we said, is Jan, and without any further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Jan Wechlin.
Thank you, Cliff, and thank you for the opportunity. We've had quite a few engagements on the report, and I'm very happy about the feedback received. It's a fascinating part of the industry for me to look at and to have been involved with since we started this in quite a few years ago. I think it was 2016 when we first started this. Okay. And as a social and economic researcher, these kind of projects are right up my channel of interest. So I enjoy working on them, and happy to give that feedback. I think the report and from SAFMA's perspective, how the information is going to be shared through all the different platforms and so on. So not all of you may have seen the report, but the area that we're talking about, as Cliff mentioned, is around the training and development of staff and the expertise in the industry. I think what Dumisani and Andrew and so on will talk about in relation to where we are now, and obviously within the context of what's happening in the industry, to further flesh out the ideas around that. This survey was conducted just before lockdown and all of that. So it was conducted beginning of the year in February. So awareness of COVID was already there, but the implications of it has not been, contextualized to its full extent. So I think the conversation should lead from the base findings as in the report into how to take that forward and what to do with that. So the almost one sentence summary of the training and development within the industry could be said that it is there, but just not there. And what I mean by that is that a whole host of different training providers and programs, whether they externally provided or whether service providers as well as clients have internal programs to upskill staff. The finding is that when training is provided to staff at a external level, staff members are taken up to a level of, say, 70 or 80% of what is required within the business to be considered a fully engaged, fully skilled employee to be able to do the work that's required. The balance of that, the 20 or 30%, is left up to the employer through on-the-job training, through internal sessions, through different levels of engagement with the staff to bring the staff members up to the required quality standards or measurements that the business specifically has internally that would be required for that staff member to make the contribution and support the business in its offering in terms of time, skill, and turnaround time. And that's essentially where the training need is specifically in that last 20 to 30%. So it's almost as if there's a need for a finishing course or a refinement course or a specialization within a business. And the discussion should be about, is that up to the training providers to look at those kind of options, or is it something that the businesses would like to retain in-house and develop their skills, because that's obviously differentiation. And whether it would be, in terms of sharing too much about what you do and how you do things to make that generic or broader to the industry at large. Those are obviously up to businesses to decide for themselves. The second point around the finding for me was that there's a lot of training happening, and it is considered generally that up to about 80% of staff is considered to be fully skilled. Now, that's a good level. However, we all understand that fully skilled is not a static point. It's not something you achieve and then that's the end of it. The market is changing, dynamics continuously develop, and especially now, there are a whole host of new challenges on the cards, which would mean that fully skilled may be less skilled in a couple of months from now on specific developments that the market require. So it would be a challenge going forward to maintain that level of experienced or skilled staff in the business. In terms of training over the last 12 months, on both client and service provider side, specifically training staff on any of the skills required. From a service provider side, it's about 51% of staff were trained, whichever form of training that might have been. And on a client side, it's a little bit higher at 67%, which train staff. And majority of that training happens on the job. So it's almost as if that 20 to 30% feeds into that cohort of the on-the-job training from both clients as well as service providers. And the last point I want to make, and that's really coming back to the just contextualizing that 20 to 30%. We asked respondents or participants to indicate what should training look at. What are the key things that should be addressed? And 83% of all those who responded pointed at basically one thing, and that is the quality of training. So in terms of, if you can put it bluntly, bums in seats and handing out certificates and so on, yes, those are needed, those are required to upskill to a specific level, but there's definitely a need for something beyond that, to increase that quality, that level of expertise, and things like focus on skills development, practical skills, not just certificates. Improve quality of training specific to the needs, fit for purpose. That specifically refers to more refined type of training needs within the business to meet with the quality standards that is expected. Another one is be proactive as an organization, and that organization was strong emphasis back towards SAFMA, is to conduct skills audits, to accredit training, to develop networking opportunities for better coordination of the kind of training needs, and to meet those needs among both clients and service providers on the one side, and training providers and consultants to help with the specialized training on the other. And the last one is bring training in-house to happen in real-time situations. Offer learnerships or customized, offer learnerships customized to the business. Talking a little bit about the same type of thing as the previous point, but specifically referring to the in-house situation. The further point to that, or the extension of that point, is that training should be practical. The theoretical side of it is good to have, to understand the context, but in a specific situation, bringing that theory into practice and what the next steps are, how do you deal with these different things, those are some of the more specific points that is highlighted through the survey. I think the about 8% of the those that we spoke to said current training is adequate and it's good. No further changes needed to that, which isn't a great percentage. So, and the flip side of that is referring to the quality or finishing or refinement aspect of it. So that's really for me an indication of how top of mind that need is. And I think specifically now where we are in terms of building new systems or engaging with clients in different ways or measuring how the performance is happening in a business with limiting physical contact between people. There are a whole host of new things that's coming along, and to take the business or the staff complement with in that regard. And then a few other things, quite small, is in terms of training that caters for different home language requirements, and that you don't lose someone along the way through a training session simply because some of the terminology or the experience or so on may not be as clear, and perhaps create some dissonance between what is learned and what is taken away. So I think, Cliff, if there's, I'm going to stay on, so I can certainly talk a lot more about this, but happy to contribute to some of the areas as it may come up in the discussion. But I think for now, I've painted a bit of a picture of what that training need is and where it's coming from. So happy to put it back to you, and then to take the conversation forward. Thank you.
Jan, thanks very much, and some really interesting stuff. And we have discussed this aspect of the survey and many other aspects in quite some detail, but some very interesting views that came out there and some very interesting food for thought. If anyone has any questions, please pop them on the chat line. Marianne is monitoring that for us, and she will alert us as we go. And I think we'll wrap up with a general Q&A session after our speakers have all done. Thanks again, Jan, for putting us in the picture there.
Pleasure.
Next up is Andrew, who's going to share some of his practical experiences in the world of FM service delivery and skills development. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks, Cliff, and hello to all the participants and fellow panelists. And I'd like to start off by saying I got the survey and the report yesterday, and I tell you, it really was very interesting to go through and to see some of the differences of clients and service providers and the comments and the results from it. And I think a lot of interrogation would have to be done by all people, and it was nice to see some changes and alignment of ideas and what priorities were for different people. In terms of service delivery and when they choose service providers, et cetera, Obviously, within the cleaning and security industry, we can talk about pre-COVID and post-COVID. And I think pre-COVID, from a training and operational point of view, within your larger commercial centers, there was a lot of training for cleaning. There was a lot of companies have larger training centers and that kind of thing. I think where the ball was dropped is in your more rural, remote areas where a company's cleaning an office block and they've got 3 cleaners there and they need to replace a cleaner. The training was done by a sort of on-site, the supervisor or team leader that was on that site, and there was no real formality within that kind of environment. Most of your cleaning companies, obviously the security industry is quite formalized and legislated, and there are specific training grades and that kind of thing. The cleaning industry's made huge progress in terms of that. I don't know if everybody's heard about the environmental health the professional body we've created, where we started to take cleaning training in-house, and we're moving it sort of from the services CETA into the professional body in order to get some sort of formal qualifications within the cleaning industry. For those that don't know, also similar to the security industry, the bargaining councils are in process of being created for both of the different sectors. So that, I think, is just a summary of pre-COVID. I do agree that sort of once the basic training is done, the rest of the training is either in a formal classroom for a sort of a management level, was done in the past, and for the on-the-floor guy, the supervisor level, a lot of it was done on an in-house kind of basis. Pre-COVID, I think we ignored recruitment to a large degree in the cleaning sector in particular, is that we would, on certain sites in particular, we would just take 5 people that came in, and if they had a clean criminal record, they looked presentable, we put them in onto that site. I think we're getting more selective, and we're going to have to get more selective. From an operational point of view going forward from this COVID period, is we obviously have to speak to our clients, the relationship between our clients, the FM companies that contract us in certain sites, the managing agents, the landlords, that kind of thing. We need to obviously understand what their needs are, and obviously there's a huge compliance training mechanism that has to happen. I mean, we were talking earlier this morning with a HR consulting company, and we're going through all the legislation and the different acts and relating to tourism. And I mean, it was like a 17-page document kind of thing. And it's about making decisions of how you're going to utilize staff to do that social distancing, the not doing turn down services, the cleaning processes, that kind of thing. I think we faced a very similar thing on the security side, is that suddenly when COVID came out, you saw at every shopping center and shop, there was a security officer busy spraying people's hands and that kind of thing. And now we've got these handhelds, these foot operated sanitizing systems and that kind of thing. You know, security guards in the past security officers used to stand at a door of a shopping center, and they might greet the person coming in. In this time, they've had to be very interactive with the clients coming into those retail centers, as in telling them, you know, so you've got to stand at that line, stand at that line, stand at that line. So that customer interaction has been quite huge. So that's going to create a new training requirement. And I think that's what the operational businesses are going to have to see, what their clients' needs and requirements are going forward post this. I think we're going to get a lot of, as you said earlier, just now, there's going to be more interactive discussions via Skype, Team, all these kind of different mechanisms. And we're going to have to actually provide on site. If you've got a team leader or a supervisor at a upmarket scale site, you're going to want that person to be skilled in conversing on the electronic platforms. I think one of for the operational businesses is obviously there's realignment and resizing of businesses. So retrenchment is a reality. And we're going to find that we're going to get a lot of skilled people in the marketplace. So obtaining the right level of skilled person might not be that difficult for the next year, but you've got to recruit them properly in order to adjust with your business and your client's business. You know, we are really client focused. In the cleaning and security industry, you have to be client focused. There's no, I mean, we know where we want our business to go to, but we need the assistance from our clients to contract our services in order to get there. Kind of thing. So, yeah, I think that's where we're at. I think we're going to face challenges, as in training costs money, and obviously the clients pay for that, but obviously being in a price sensitive. I do think that particularly in the cleaning environment, the cleaning is going to take a few steps up in the ladder because of the sanitization, disinfectant, what it's done, the disruption it's done to the industry and the economy as a whole. So hopefully it will be taken with a bit more seriousness, I think, or a bit more importance in the scale, in the ladder. Yeah. But I think it's about growing your own timber, and once again, it's about recruitment. We've used in the past 5 years, we actively focused on NGOs, and we've aligned ourselves with a couple of NGOs that do soft skills training, but not if they're doing like a barista at a coffee. There's a group called Ground Up that do barista training, but we focus on them to teach them that a barista needs to be somebody that's charismatic and who can engage with the customer. But we often find when we go to places like that, we get people that've been trained to make a cup of coffee, and they can make a cappuccino and a cup of latte and all that, but they've been given no skills on communication, interaction with clients. And I think that more and more, when you are recruiting, it's about recruiting the right person for the right job. And organizations like myself in my business, I've got the one property that I've got the client has employed about 30 or 40 of my staff in positions like waiters, porters, the switchboard operators. There's a reservationist at that hotel. There's in fact, the hospitality trainer used to work for me. The executive housekeeper used to be one of my staff. So it's about growing your own timber, but also having that relationship between all parties involved. There's always various subcontractors, contractors, clients, and it's about having an understanding amongst all those people, and aligning skills training with that. I have clients, staff coming on my training courses when I do something, and I have my staff going on their training courses when they do it. And I think more and more that's important in this new environment. And I don't think we understand what our business is, what business is going to look like in another 3-4 months' time. We've got a good understanding of where we're going to go to, and things are going to be right-sized and downsized. But what's going to happen at a huge office block where 40% of the employees are working from home? What skills are we going to need? What as service providers? We're going to have obviously mobile data technicians, because guys are going to have issues with their PCs and printers at home. We're going to have to send people out to deal with those issues. So I think it's going to be a very interesting future. And I think for now, obviously compliance training. I mean, we were going through the list again today. You have to train on numerous topics and areas and that kind of thing. And I think that's what I heard Department of Labor are aggressively out there doing these inspections. So we need to make sure that we are compliant. And I think that's going to take us another 3-4 months to get all that 100% in place at every single little site and operational area. Thanks.
That's great. That's great, Andrew. I think it's interesting to note, we keep on talking have been pre-COVID, we've been talking in the FM industry about aligning ourselves more strategically and not necessarily operationally. But COVID has certainly taught us how to align ourselves with cleaning.
Correct.
Thanks for that, Andrew. Appreciate your inputs, and there are 1 or 2 questions that have come through, and we'll handle them after the next session. So Dumisani, if you can unmute yourself, and the floor is going to be yours. There you go. Thanks.
Thank you. Just going to put this up quickly. Hope everybody can see what I'm presenting. Okay. Right. Good afternoon, everybody. And people in Cape Town, good morning. We know you're different times. In addition to what the previous speakers have said, let us firstly just keep this in mind, that when it comes to disruptive industries, we've always been part of that, right? Politically, from the time that with the Labour Relations Act and the outsourcing of employees as part of responding to a political pressure point in time, economic downturns, economic upturns, social job creation, socio-economic context and environment responsiveness, when it comes to things like technology, legal compliance, and environmental issues, our industry has always been affected. We are probably the one industry that is affected by most of big decisions in a country makes, all right? This table of the contents of my presentation. This is what makes for a skill set, okay? My understanding is that the skill is the ability to do something, to have expertise, but post-COVID, in fact, during COVID and post-COVID, this is what we need to be doing as an industry. We are learning, we're getting new information on a daily basis. We are relearning some of the older things that we used to do, but we're doing them better and differently. But we also need to unlearn certain things. For example, we already spoke about big data. Then it slowly evolved towards things like the Internet of Things. But we saw those things as abstract, and the reason for this was we didn't see ourselves as part of that ecosystem. But I'll more about that later, all right? Now, here's the first thing that we need to do, and I'm glad that there's a lot of people who have attended this session. Remain curious in the industry, right? Always learn new things, share information, be part of groups, the WhatsApp groups, whatever groups that are there, which are FM specific, but always be sharing information, acquiring information, and try to apply it in your context and environment. Remain versatile. We cannot fixate on hard services, soft services, and specialized services or project management. We are now becoming business enablers. We are becoming far more strategic, right? And the ability to move along with the changes in a macro environment is essential. We need to find role models. Myself, two members, senior members of the industry, who are my sort of role models and to a degree mentors. Right? It is the what's going to make us different. We need to shorten our learning cycle. We are now at 90 odd days in lockdown or COVID-19 lockdown. We are 3 months older and 3 months wiser. The things that we regulations, some of them ridiculous, we know, and include in our offering. For example, things such as using alcohol-based cleaners as opposed to just using detergent that smells nice. That's something we've learned, and we need to adopt and include this in our daily offering. Make a quality effort in applying the new information that we're constantly acquiring, all right? But also we need to measure what we're doing comprehensively. And I know
Oops. Let's give Dumisani a minute to try and get back there. Yeah, he's back.
okay, I'm back.
Dumisani.
Technology will get the better of you sometimes. All right. We're also learning, we're now doing things differently. From the time that we had to be in the office physically, in order to make a meaningful impact and contribution, we're now doing things remotely. I don't know where you lost me, but I will take a chance and assume that this is where you lost me when I was talking about role models. Okay? Yeah. Sorry about that. All right.
Just a comment, Dumisani. Maybe your screen sharing is eating into your bandwidth there a bit.
Okay, that's fine. So I'll just talk through my presentation. It's fine. All right. Anyway, now let's start with our evolution as an industry. As I said earlier, we've always been affected in one way or another by big changes in the country. All right. Now, at one point it was big data. We moved on to augmented reality. We had additive manufacturing, cloud computing, cybersecurity, and simulation. Ask any FM if none of these things have ever affected the way they do things. I'll tell you that person is lying. We've all been affected by these, right? But in all our training and all our planning, we contractually talk about force majeure incidents, all right? But we're talking about things that we know, things that we had already experienced, like the legal fraternity. We are learning on a case-by-case basis, right? So we are 3 months into this, we're 3 months wise and three wise smarter, and obviously we're going to improve how we do things, all right? However, none of us have ever planned for a black swan event like this one. Now, a black swan event, by definition, is a 1 in 100 incident, right? We've never gone through a world war, we've never gone through any major disruption except for what we define as force majeure in most of our contracts. Now, politically, okay, thanks, sorry, I'm being disturbed here. All right, now we are in what we are now gonna call a pestle reality: political, economical, social, technological, legal, and environmental considerations reality. Politically, as an FM industry, we cannot lose people. We cannot shared jobs. We need to preserve jobs. But how do you do that? You do that firstly by, as I said, by learning new things and unlearning the old way of doing things. Economically, we've had to take a softer view on things such as contracts, things such as SLAs, so that we preserve jobs during the COVID period. But post-COVID, we can revise how we structure some of our contracts and arrangements with service providers. Socially, we need to contribute to preserving livelihoods in South Africa. Our unemployment is now creeping towards 40%, which is shocking, which means that on average, out of every 10 people, 4 would be without a job. We know what this means. This means that there's other dystopic dysfunctionality that's going to come through, such as crime and so on and so forth. So as an industry that contributes so much in terms of GDP, I believe that it's our duty to unlearn what we know and to relearn and to do things differently. Technology. We as FMs, I mean, as ever since I've been in the industry, we've always been using technology in one form or another. We are big consumers of data. We understand algorithms, and we reactively use the information, right? But what we need to do differently as FMs going forward is that we need to be thought leaders when it comes to consumption of data. Remember, from data, you get information. From information, you get knowledge, and from knowledge, you get wisdom. The difference between a good FM and an average FM is how you use that information going forward, right? And from my experience, we are probably one of the most versatile industries. We've got a lot of people who can easily adapt to this. But let me give you some things that you need to have going forward, okay? The first skill that you need to have is be adaptable and flexible. Okay, you need to, okay, this is just not fun. All right, I'm still here. All right, so you need to be adaptable and to be flexible. As I said, we cannot fixate on how we used to do things. We need to be a bit tech savvy. As you can see, I'm battling with this, but I'm learning new skills when it comes to using technology, right? But remember that in our industry, if you talk about the Internet of Things, it's literally hardware that is connecting physical infrastructure to human beings. But the core, the driver, right? So we need to have that set of skills. Yeah, okay. Then the other thing that we need to have, and I know that for South Africans, it's not an easy thing to do, is creativity and innovation. We cannot be victims of change. We can be creators of new opportunities. I mean, case in point, Mercedes F1 team, they shifted from making racing cars to creating breathing aids. Cleaning companies are now no longer just cleaners of buildings, but they're also part of a health and safety paraphernalia. They are part of educating our people as they come into buildings. They are now interacting with clients on our behalf and conveying the message of COVID regulations compliance, okay, security officers and so on and so forth. But the other thing that you need to acquire as a new skill post-COVID is data literacy. We get data as FMs, we use it in our garbage patch environment called facilities management. But it's about time that we start using that data as thought leaders, okay? And you also need to apply a critical thinking ability. We cannot just consume data and react to what businesses are doing or what businesses are telling us. But actually, we now need to create a space where we are thought leaders, we are leading industries, we are the enablers of people as we return to work. 4 months ago, when we went into a lockdown, we were referred to as non-essential service. But when we had to reopen the economy, we were one of the first responders that had to make sure that industries can go back to healthy and safe environments. We were the implementers of the COVID regulations. Although none of us got formal training on this, we got the information, we adapted it to our unique environments, and we made it work, right? And through this process, we've taken our rightful place of leadership within the industry. Other future skills that we're going to need going forward, in addition to what I've already referred to, are things such as training, consulting on the new way of doing things, on the new normal, right? Before I get to the future opportunities, FM opportunities such as training and so on and so forth, I want us to understand this, that as human beings, we go through cycles. Post-COVID-19, there will be a high peak of inflated expectations. We now know things differently. We are hopefully doing things differently. But the trigger point of everything is technology. And in time, there will be a trough of disillusionment, Remember, clients to some point will be disappointed with what you're offering. Then there'll be a slope of enlightenment. That simply means that we are learning as we go. We are doing things differently and much better. Then we're going to hit our plateau of productivity. But all of this simply means that you're acquiring new skills, and you're learning a different way of doing things. And if you formalize this training and you formalize it and you record how things are going to be done, it's easy for you to measure whether these newly found skills are helpful or not, right? Now, my last point is this. If you look at a typical job description of a facilities manager, we talk about projects, talk about planning, finance and budgets, auxiliary services, technology, management and leadership, operations management, and real estate management. Just those number of functions that are supposed to be performing. Most of us at best are performing maybe between 2 and 3. Then you break it down to smaller key performance indicators, not areas, right? But if you're just to embrace all of these things as the enabler and center of gravity within your organization, you are becoming a new leader in the environment. And post-COVID world, although it sounds dystopic at the moment, is a world, in my view, it's a world where there are more opportunities for FMs, all right? And my last thing is this. Remember, a lot of us are autodidactic. We've learned on the job. We are self-taught, right? And that's the one thing that makes us unique, that we adapt, we are versatile, and we continuously learn. And with that attitude of acquiring skills, learning new things, doing things differently, I believe our industry will survive. Whether people are going back to work 50% or 10%, there will always be physical infrastructure. There will always be a need for space. There will always be a need for facilities. There will always be a need for technology, for certain factors to enable people to work remotely or in their offices. But our role still remains valid, and we will continue to be being relevant. I thank you.
Dumisani, thank you very much for those thoughts. And the one issue that popped out there was the viewing of facilities management being an essential service during the lockdown period. And it was interesting to hear a number of definitions, because there's one government department out there whose FM is being run under a public-private partnership agreement, and that department decided there and then that their FM to them was an essential service. So there was no lockdown for FM from day one, even in that particular environment.
Yeah, look, Chris, Cliff, here's the thing. We've always planned for disaster recovery plans. We've got business contingency plans. It's probably the nearest thing to a black swan event that most of us would have been exposed to. So we realized that without FM and IT, we don't have those plans. With this black swan event, it has simply strengthened the need for FM planning, for a proper disaster recovery plan and business continuity planning. It spoke to your IT infrastructure and ecosystem being resilient, being strong to carry instances where 80% or 90%, or if not 100% of your staff are working remotely. Most businesses have always spoke about people being able to work remotely, but we've never tested our systems to a point where we could see where they could withstand the demands that would be placed on the system when everybody's working remotely. I know that the one department that's always been given preferential treatment has been finance and payroll for obvious reasons. But when it comes to operations and business enablement, we're always seen as sort of people who are to be considered last. Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Another point you raised there was that the sort of development of facilities managers over time. And I often ask the question, and if we had the ability here to put the question to our audience, how many of us actually woke up one morning and said, we are going to be facilities managers? I don't think there are too many of us in this session that can answer that with a firm yes. We all sort of drifted into that environment. And that's one of the areas, or one of the things that makes it such I think, a dynamic environment to be in, because we have a multitude of backgrounds that we come across. Jan, Andrew, have you got any comments on any of the discussion groups, on any of the issues presented?
I think, but from my point, and I think it's one thing that definitely from the cleaning industry side perspective is collection of data. You know, we don't really share information amongst each other. We have the NCCA and that kind of thing, but the participation in that environment is very low. And I think sort of collecting data, especially now going forward, is going to be so important. And the unfortunate thing is use of technology in the cleaning environment will lead to less employment in that sector. So it's a fine balance between getting that data and maintaining the employment levels. And in a country like an environment like ours in South Africa, obviously employment is key to us. And I think it's a concern of the cleaning industry to a large degree, is the employment levels.
Yeah, as Dumisani mentioned, the data needs to become information, because information becomes knowledge.
Correct.
That's
Yeah.
the full sort of circle. Yeah.
Okay, Cliff, if I can, I'm taking a squeeze through some of the questions. Some are easy to sort out. But for example, there's one that talks to where there are checklists or guidelines for FM with regards to COVID-19 regulations. Yes, there is. What we did is we took the World Health Organization's guidelines and then the National COVID Council's regulations. We turned them into practical and actionable items. And then through SAFMA's, I think it was our first or second training webinar, we then drilled down to literally shop floor level. So there is a document that will just guide you. It's a one page that you could give to your service providers, like your cleaning and security people, because those are outward facing service providers. They would interact a lot with the visitors to your building. But there is, if you are a property manager or a building owner or a landlord, there is a document that it's about 9 pages or so long that you need to give to your staff. You need to train them. There is a compulsory way in which you're supposed to train people. You also, as an employer, you provide certain PPEs. You ensure that your space planning and layout is compliant. So there is a document that you can refer to. However, you take the guidelines as literally as pointers, and then you fine tune this thing to work into your specific environment. Okay, that's the one thing. With regards to making my presentation available, of course, I will share the information with your good selves. But I think to make it easy, I'll send the information to SAFMA, who will then distribute it to whoever has requested this. Okay.
Thanks, Dumi. Thanks very much for that.
Cliff, just want to add something to that. I think from the discussion this morning or this afternoon and from the research findings, there are 4 important points for me. One is the location management or geographical spread. Is the industry has been focused on, this is the office block, or this is the area, or this is where things are happening. Whereas now, I think Andrew mentioned that is people working from home and managing infrastructure in different locations at the same time. So you have a geographical implication on the distribution. The second, or on delivering of the service. The second for me is that there's an increased level of human engagement in managing human interaction, if you can put it as bluntly as that. For instance, how many people in a lift, or how many people should be together or not, or what those kind of requirements are, which requires a different form of management. The third one for me is service expectations, and what comes to mind is these slogans that go around is that clean is the new green, and things like that. So I think that expectation of what is considered a good service is most likely gonna increase with a higher level of expectation of what that means. And with those 3 things in mind, your geographical spread, human interaction, and service expectations, is all 3 of those open a whole new range of different forms of measurements, and what that service level is like, and how to manage that going forward in terms of getting feedback and reacting to that, and offering that service. So thank you. Yes, that's just my view on what has been shared.
Thanks for those comments, Jan. Very, very enlightening. Interesting question here. Why we're not talking about FM qualifications in this session? We will be doing a session on FM qualifications. This was more the skills development aspect. Of course, qualifications is a part of skills development, and there are varying opinions and varying views around the qualifications required. So that could be the topic of a very interesting webinar going forward, and we will put that on the planning schedule. I don't see too many other.
Okay. But Cliff, if I may add to this. Okay, sorry about that. With regards to the FM qualification, there is a 2-year program that we had worked with the Services CETA in its creation. It's a quite intense program, but it ranges from NQF, I think, level 4 up to level NQF level 8. Okay, so there is a formal program that's in place. The only thing that has not happened, in my view, is that we didn't have enough service providers who could train people on this program. Also, some of the requirements are that people need to have on the job or in-service training opportunities in order to practicalize the theory that they would have learned. So there is a formal qualification. I'm sure when we've got that session, we can maybe put more flesh onto the framework that we've already put together. That's number one. Number two, the formal or tertiary qualifications in South Africa is, I think, it's about 5 or 6 years old. So we are not at a point where you would have a person with an honors degree in the facilities management and the requisite years of experience to get, for example, an AFP accreditation. So it's a matter of time catching up on certain things, and then people acquire the skills on the go and applying what they would have learned theoretically. But there is currently a 2-year intensive program that people could look into. Also, a SAFMA accreditation program. If you register for your accreditation and then you just follow the steps, the exposure and the number of years that you need to have in order to get the high accreditations, that is also another formal way of getting that qualification. I'm heartened in seeing government adverts in particular and private sector also requesting SAFMA accreditation of all their FM practitioners. So that for me is formalizing our industry. Remember how we started as an industry, from being outsourced to being a well-regulated and structured industry. So there is a formal way in which people can get the skills and expertise, but at a tertiary level, we're not there yet where you could get an AFP with an honors degree in facilities management. There are short programs that you can enroll for. Make sure that they're SAFMA accredited or recognized. And there are, I think, 1 or 2 service providers that are endorsed by SAFMA. You could talk to those people and they can help you to get a formal qualification. Thanks.
Yeah, and to add to that, of course, SAFMA has been authorized as the training authority for facilities management, and we'll cover that in a whole heap of detail when we go into that aspect in a future webinar. A question here regarding specific training that cleaners can go to so that they can be able to understand what is required during this COVID period. Andrew, do you have
there's a lot happening at the moment, and Prime Cleaning is one of the people offering service. There's a couple of the training providers. I forget the name of the other one, the guys associated with CSG, the facilities guys, the training company, they're doing a specific training. We also was in the process of a website called www.cleansouthafrica.co.za, which it's up and running now today, but there's only a few articles on there, but it's an open forum blog where people can download and upload articles to and training programs. There's some information on there already. And obviously they'd fed HASA, a lot of companies, a lot of organizations. The World Health Organization has a very good article summary on their page about the cleaning requirements. In fact, and I saw there was another question about the chemicals. If you go to the World Health Organization page, there's a very good descriptive of the different disinfectants, sanitizers, the purposes, the uses thereof, and what is the best. I mean, just in short, sort of ammonium chloride, which is BIOS-ID, the common name, is the most effective, but obviously it affects different surfaces. Like you can't use it on marble, you can't use it on some stained woods and that kind of thing. And then generally a QAC cleaner is the next best thing. But yeah, go to the World Health Organization page. There's a very fantastic description of all the different sanitizers, the different products you can use, the uses, why you use it here, why you don't use it there, kind of thing.
Super, thank you. There's another question here around facilities management training in general that talks to training on technical or hard services, business continuity planning, IT and so forth. There are a multitude of training initiatives available. Possibly drop Marianne at safma.co.za an email, or info@safma.co.za, and I'm sure she can point you in the direction of general training. Folks, we got to start wrapping up because we are getting a time limit. So any concluding remarks, Andrew?
No, thank you very much. Just a great opportunity. And I think we're going to face a very interesting future, and the year or so is going to be, interesting. And I think we've got to watch out, obviously, from the labor environment to see what happens with the unions and new labor's legislation and that sort of thing. I think it's going to be tough, but yeah, good luck to everybody. Keep safe.
Thanks for your participation. Jan, anything from your side as a parting shot?
Thanks, Cliff. I heard or had a conversation yesterday about the current infection rate and what's happening, and the latest is that it's likely to keep going till probably October, beginning November, before we'll start seeing that the curve begins to level out. So I think it is, lots of things going on at the moment in terms of dealing with the current situation, but also in terms of planning and what is likely to happen with not really having an end date in mind. Is, things are going to return to normal at around then. We don't know what that date is. So it is there will be a lot of plans and expectations and so on, but I think the important part about it is to maintain that sense of versatility and agility to be able to react to these things, which none of us really know exactly how they're all going to pan out. But from my side as well, thank you very much for the opportunity. I really found it interesting to be part of this, and everyone, all the best. Thank you, Cliff.
Thanks very much, Jan. Dumisani, anything from your side?
Be flexible, be willing to learn, be tech savvy, take your rightful place and lead the organization. As we go post-COVID-19 South Africa, as we go into the space, we in the FM industry are going to be the enablers of businesses to do what they need to do. The shakeout that's going to come out from COVID-19 will say that companies must now focus on their core business. Core business means that a lot of FM and software and hard services will be outsourced. Let's equip ourselves with skills, with the know-how, so that we can take advantage of those opportunities. There are people who can offer you training, but my advice to you is this: if you're going to have a training, at least have one service provider so that you've got a connected and a micro-continuous training program, as opposed to a disparate and disconnected way of training. So move from a basic FM program all the way to advanced qualifications. Try to ensure that at least if it's not in-house, it's with the same person so that they can structure something that's going to work for you in your own unique environment. My last parting shot is this: the new South Africa is going to come requires a new normal. The new normal requires a different way of thinking. And one way of differently thinking is to see ourselves as business enablers, as a center of gravity within organizations, and not as a byproduct of forward the copy of my presentation and we can share with those people. The only request I make is that at least you acknowledge the source of your information. All right. Thank you very much, and good luck to everybody. It's a new world order out there. Cheers.
Final word, a thank you to our panelists. Thanks, Jan, Andrew, and Dumisani. Thank you to our participants. Thank you to Marianne for putting this together for us. God bless. See you soon. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.